And welcome back to CTV News. Well, if you saw the Lynch programme last night, you would have seen developer Anthony Goff having co Sarah essentially suggesting there's no new international investment coming into the city. Is he right? Joining me now is business commentator Warren Head. How are you? Good to see you.
Oh, I'm good, thanks very much.
Is he right? Is there any international investors, new international investment really coming into the city, do you think, Warren?
Well, I don't think his intel is 100%. He's pretty well positioned, you would say, and he's related to people who would be in the know as well. But I've heard about American consortia looking at parts of Christchurch, not necessarily the CBD. 3 weeks back, we had a major India business mission in town. A lot of Sarah officials were there. I was there for the afternoon. I didn't see any developers there. They were interested in investing into Christchurch.
I guess what he's suggesting is, what really is the point of anybody from Sri Lanka and India to invest their cash, their hard-earned money, into a dive like Christchurch?
There's a lot of competition out there right now. Our biggest competition really is Auckland. Auckland's got big plans for the waterfront up there as well. So it's quite logical to see some developers like Christo the other day saying that he was moving out of the square and looking at Auckland. There's good opportunity up there as well.
Well, he's saying he's had too much of a hard time with Sarah.
Well, Sarah's fundamental issue, I think, going forward will be this 5-level cap. Now, if I was in there as an owner-developer before the earthquakes and I had a 20-storey building, I could build up to that level. And then if I go in as a new chum into that area, I'm only allowed to go to 5, which is kind of uneconomic at the build costs that are tied to these buildings now, where it's probably about 2 floors below ground that you don't see before they come upstairs. The foundation cost is probably anywhere 25, 28, 30% now. So, you know, you've got a bit of airspace to build before you start to get that back. And that's why we're seeing these rentals going through 400 square metres of space, which then is competing on the wrong side, if you're on the one side of the river, the eastern side, with the west side of the river, which is, they say, slightly lower, but there's probably incentives in there as well to fill those towers.
Why has the west side of the river got its act together, but the east side, surprise, surprise, Sarah-controlled areas, is so slow?
Well, it's a problematic area for a start. It always has been. The square is a difficult place to build. Builders have gone bust in the square 50 years or so ago. There's a lot of aquifers and things running through there. The geotech's much more complex. But it will be, in my view, the place to be once those big government projects kick in and you've got thousands of people working there. And then there'll be the need for the service industries to go around those. So there's going to be a large number of government workers in that precinct. And I think possibly the towers that have been built now, they weren't there in that scale previously, so there's more people have been sucked out of the core. So I think, can you get value back? I was reading an interesting book the other day. I'm interested in what's happened in other cities and relating them. And you know, if you look at the growth of Manhattan, for example, I'm reading one very interesting at the moment, where they built high-rise apartment blocks, short stories, 3 stories, and today they're worth just mega millions, you know, because people bought them up in the 1890s to 1900s. And maybe that's what Christchurch Cathedral Square needs to consider itself to be in the future, a desirable inner city place to live with beautiful apartments. And all the developers, once they've got a lot of money from building towers, can go and live there.
Trouble is, though, from what my understanding is, there are no local investors that give 2 hoots about having any wraparound support, any businesses around the so-called anchor projects. At the moment, there's simply none. Look, Sarah's be commended, at least the bus exchange is coming in on time, the Justice Precinct's looking good.
Yes.
But where are the local guys? The local guys, will they be able to afford the land to wrap around these services, though?
Well, let's get a real handle on where things are at. The best reading I've seen on this recently has been by one of the major banks, and you know, fundamentally the building work right now is twice the level it was pre-earthquake. That's the first point. Start of 2015, reconstruction was probably only 30% complete. That's talking about the non-residential areas. Yes, there have been delays. It's complex in there. There's a list of things you need to comply with, whereas you go to Auckland, it's a much shorter list. So you need to get the list shorter, and there's been a bit of work done on that. At probably end of 2014, the bill was up about 40% on the year before, 2013, and it was 150% greater than before the earthquake. So anybody who says there's not anything happening simply is talking nuts, because there's a lot happening. Right now, there's about half of the reconstruction that will be completed in the next 2 years. So what we're seeing now is the residential repairs and construction work starting to peak off, and it'll come off quite quickly soon. And we'll start to see the infrastructure and public assets moving up, and we'll start to see the commercial build, which is really only going to be about 10 billion at tops of the 35 billion. It's the latest figure I've got. That's going to be built overall. So there's still a lot to be done. The infrastructure work, the skirt work is about 2.5 billion. That's about 2/3 done. So to come, I'd say we've got about 8-9 billion of public assets still to come. Yes, it is frustrating. I was with a UK trade mission the other night at the Novotel. I was surrounded by rubble really outside, and they said, we're astounded at how slow things are. We didn't think it was this bad. I was with an Al Jazeera film crew in Christchurch just today, and they hadn't been here in 5 years. They were amazed at the slowness of what was happening. So, you know, there's a lot
What do you put that slowness down to?
It's caution. You know, money is going to be committed for a long period of time, so the numbers are difficult to work. They're difficult to work everywhere, and those first off the block, Victoria Street and Addington, have probably got the lion's share of the professional firms.
Are we going to have an oversupply of office space in central Christchurch?
Well, right now, let's see. Colliers say, according to media reports, that it's probably about 88% leased now, about 12% vacancy. That's not too bad. I mean, Wellington runs at 10-12% all of the time. Auckland's down about 8%, so it's natural. It's natural that real estate companies would like to lease the lot. Nobody can quickly lease the lot, so it's going to take a while.
So, final, slow and steady wins the race, Warren Head.
I agree with that, yeah.
All right, Warren Head from headliners.co.nz. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming in.